You should buy an HPA. No, you should buy an AG. You should buy GBB. You can't imagine how many times I've heard that. People with HPAs always tell me that it is the best platform available on the market. People with the GBB replicas told me that this is the real thing and you won't play with the AG after you transition to GBBR replica. And people with AG replicas tell me, well, it's budget friendly and it's efficient. So what should you buy? Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about whether should we buy an AG or maybe a GBB replica. I don't want to talk about HPA replicas at all because, well, I don't know anything about them. And also, I don't want to carry a tank on my back. I don't want to have a line that connects this tank to my replica. I just, well, despise the look. Let's just say it like that. But I have 4 AEG replicas and right now I have a GBB replica. It's 2026 and I think it's a good idea to talk about that. Why? Well, I think that GBB market skyrocketed within past few years and right now we have tons of manufacturers making tons of different interesting guns, airsoft guns, YouTube, and maybe there is no need for you to buy an AEG. Back in the day, everyone started with AEG replicas. It was normal. Right now, in my opinion, well, you can start with the GBBR replica. In this video, I'm going to talk about mainly GBB replicas, not so much about AEG replicas, but I will try to compare them as much as possible. So, long story short, an AEG replica has a gearbox with lots of parts inside. And you use electricity, you connect the batteries, the whole system runs. And it uses compressed air. You have a piston with a piston head, you have a cylinder, gear, spring. I'll try my best to find a way to show you how the whole thing works. It's quite efficient. It's sometimes hard to fix, especially if you're inexperienced. That's why we have airsoft techs. But I can't say that you will have to do that often. Maybe once or twice a year, you will send your gun to a tech to relube everything and to take a look. Maybe something is broken or almost broken, so you replace it and enjoy playing. When it comes to GBB replicas, we use gas, green gas, sometimes different types of gas. And unfortunately, due to that fact, we have some issues, some disadvantages, but there are also some advantages. Let's talk about issues at first. And I mentioned that you will have to use gas, but I would like to start with your budget and your salary and your money, because GBB replicas are on average more expensive and GBB mags are more expensive. I don't know about the country where you live, but I live in Russia. No politics in the comment section down below. And by the way, that's why I might struggle with the vocab, with pronunciation, with grammar, and yeah, I do have an accent. Theoretically, I can talk like that. Hello, comrades! Today we're gonna actually talk about AGs, GBBRs, but I will try my best to avoid doing so. Let's get back to the video. The GBB mags are much more expensive, the replica itself much more expensive. I don't know about your country, but in Russia sometimes you will have to pay double or even triple the price and you will have to wait. Well, it's a good scenario, I would say, for 1 month, but usually it's up to 3 months. And it's upsetting and frustrating, especially when your gun is broken. So, if you're ready to spend some money and your salary is high enough and you're ready to spend your money on your hobby, you can buy a GBB replica. If you are struggling, and I understand, I've started playing airsoft when I was 17, my salary was, let's just say, $50 per month, and my university paid me for my GPA also. It was a scholarship, also somewhere around $40-50 per month. For the record, I had a GPA of 4.9 out of 5. It's not like in the US where the highest is 4.0. We have the highest 5.0 and I had 4.9. And yeah, my scholarship was around 40 or maybe $50. I can't say that I had enough money to buy a GBB replica, a GBB mag, or even some parts for my replica. That's why I had an AEG. The second thing is the maintenance. As I mentioned before, you can send your AEG to a tech, maybe once or twice a year. I would recommend you to do that twice a year before the winter season and before the summer season. And that's pretty much it. Theoretically, you can learn how to fix it by yourself and how to upgrade it by yourself, but it's a bit more complicated in comparison with GBB replicas. However, with the GBB replicas, you will have to clean them and relube them after every single game, or maybe you can play 3-4 games and then clean everything. It depends on the platform, and I recommend you to watch separate reviews depending on a gun that you want to buy. In Russia, sometimes we say that your arms are growing out of your ass, which basically means that you shouldn't try to even fix anything in your life because you're going to break it. If it's a thing for you and you're not ready to send your replica every single time to a tech and pay money for that, you should buy an AEG and forget about GBB World for now. And let's finally talk about the weather. I live in Russia, in Moscow. The weather is, let's just say, quite unpredictable. Right now it's 14th of May, and 2 weeks ago we had snow. Yeah, that is strange even for us. So, if it's too cold in your country, and I'm talking about the cold weather mostly, you will struggle while playing with your GBB replica. Or you can play indoors on a CQB field, which has heating system. I hope in Russia some CQB fields don't, so during the winter it's also very cold inside. There are different types of gas. Well, there are different powers of gas. We have normal green gas, we have 12 kgs, 14 kgs, 16 kgs, 18 kgs, at least in Russia. And you need a more powerful gas for a colder weather. Some people tested different gases in Russia, and they managed to play up until minus 10 degrees Celsius, but it was really hard. They had to change some internal parts, and you could shoot semi-only, but you still could play with that. Also, you will need to spend some money on different instruments, something like this. Well, this big boy is a wrench that I used to disassemble my replica. And I will show you a part from a Jaeger Precision video. I'm sorry for taking it, but unfortunately right now I can't film it by myself. Of course, the link is in the description down below. Jaeger Precision, please allow me to use this video. It's for educational purposes only. And when it's MK18 by Tokyo Marui and you're using red thread locker, you will have to buy something like this, and you will have to be ready to buy different weird stuff to disassemble your gun, clean your gun. I also want to talk about mags for your GBB replicas. Not only they are much more expensive in comparison with AEGs, the mag capacity is much lower. So if we are talking about advantages and disadvantages, with your AEG you could run something like a PTSP mag, and it's going to be around 250 BBs. I have Tokyo Marui MK18, which I'm going to show you later, and I'm running only 30 BBs. You have to be prepared for that, but it's, let's just say for me, it's rather an advantage than a disadvantage. Now let's talk about my personal experience. Well, this is my replica. It's Tokyo Marui MK18, and long story short, I'm in love with it. I will make a separate review when I have all the parts and all the upgrades done, but right now I can say that there are a few things that I've already changed. And for today's video, I think it's important to talk about that. First of all, I've installed a new, I'm not sure which term should I use because I'm talking about my airsoft replica, and yeah, YouTube, just for the record, this is an airsoft replica, just a toy, completely legal in my country and in many different countries all over the world. So, I have installed a Surefire 4-prone flash hider replica that allows me to use a Surefire RC3 suppressor, but it's not a suppressor, it's just a compartment for my Tracy unit. Really convenient. I strongly recommend you to use this thing while you're playing CQB, and you can remove it when you don't need it. That's what I'm gonna do. Also, I've installed Macpole Grip, just my preference, and I have an EOTech. If you like EOTechs, I would recommend you to buy EOTechs from Evolution Gear if you can buy or use a real thing. And I have this link by Ferro Concepts. Well, this is just a replica made by our local manufacturer because, as I said again, in Russia sometimes you have to pay double or triple the price, and I want to pay $200 for my sling. When it comes to internal upgrades, I've changed the inner barrel. It's DaVinci 250mm 601. I've changed the bucket. It's Maple Leaf. Hot Up is made by Max, and I'm in love with it. I've also changed the buffer and the buffer spring. I'm using an aluminum buffer and 110% Angry Gun buffer spring, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously I've changed the nozzle, and I'm using an Angry Gun complete assembly nozzle, and I love it. Let me actually put it on me so it will be much more convenient to talk. So, my experience, as I mentioned before, it's Tokyo Marui MK18, and I've already shown you the key that I had to buy to disassemble the whole thing. I will talk about different manufacturers later, but right now I would like to talk about issues and actually how I got this particular replica. It was a present. It was gifted to me in 2025 September, my birthday, 20th of September to be precise, by my family and my elder brother. And I've tried my best to play exclusively with this replica. I once played with my Scar H, but then transitioned back. So my experience will be full, and I can say actually something useful. What issues I had? Well, when it comes to AG replicas, also I would like to mention that it is, well, quite easy and quite hard for you to control the muzzle velocity. You will have to change the spring and maybe some other parts if you want a powerful replica, and you will send your gun to attack. Maybe theoretically you will do it by yourself, but the whole system will be quite consistent, and it doesn't matter where you're playing or what's the weather like. But with GBB replicas you will have to use different gases, and the main thing isn't your spring but your nozzle. You have to know about your field limits and your country limits. In Russia, we can play with the replicas that have muzzle velocity up to 3 joules when it comes to sniper rifles. When you play in CQB, you can have up until 1.44 joules. When you play in outdoors, you can have up until 1.6 joules if you want to play inside different buildings. If you want to play only outdoors, you can have up until 2.25 joules. After that, you will have to remove your full auto. And I'm not saying that if you've seen someone inside the building, you can shoot him. Of course you can, but you will have to stand outside. And the same thing, if you're standing inside the building, you can only shoot someone who is outside the building, not inside. Those are the rules. In your country, they are different, I bet. And in Japan, and I'm talking about Japan because, well, I have MK18 by Tokyo Marui, and Tokyo Marui is a Japanese company. The field limit and the country law allows you to use up until 1 joule. So I've decided to play with the stock replica, and I made a huge mistake. The main problem was that enemy players weren't calling their hits, and I was angry and frustrated. In the end, I've asked my elder brother to shoot me, and then I realized why they weren't calling their hits, because I swear to God, ricochets are more powerful. So I had to change the nozzle, and that's the issue I had. Right now I have an Angry Gun nozzle. Theoretically, you can modify your stock nozzle and install N-Pass. That's what I recommend you to do. It would allow you to control your muzzle velocity. And when you buy a GBB replica, that's an absolute must. Theoretically, when you buy an AG, you can play with it right out of the box, and the chances are that the power is up to the field limit. At least that's what happens when you are buying a replica in Russia. With GBB replicas, where you will have to buy an N-Pass if you don't have one out of the box. The next issue that I had, as I mentioned before, the weather is important. I was playing indoors, but we had some issues with the heating system, so it was plus 15 degrees. and I've used normal green gas. Unfortunately, I had cycling issues. I had a mag with 30 BBs inside, but I managed to shoot only 20-25. That's why I've started loading less. Then I've transitioned to 12 kg gas and everything worked like a charm. Also, I had issues with full auto. I had to change one part and fix the whole system. Right now it works like a charm, but you will have to be ready for that. Because with the AGs, I had no issues. I just send them to attack every once in a while, and that's why nothing breaks. So, to summarize, what I recommend you to do. When you buy a GBB replica, you will have to learn about it, and then you will have to install an NPAS. That will allow you to play comfortably, and it doesn't matter what field would you choose. If you want to buy a Tokyo Marui replica, like this, if it's an MK18, you will have to buy a separate key to disassemble the whole thing. Also, Tokyo Marui guns have issues with the bolt over travel if you're not using Japanese green gas. You also have to address this issue and fix it. Usually people 3D print something and put it inside your buffer tube. Also, you can put coins with the duct tape. I don't recommend you to do that. I recommend you to buy something 3D printed or 3D printed by yourself. There are different videos available on YouTube about this particular problem. I also will film a video about my platform when I'm finished with upgrading it and stuff like that. And right now, I recommend you just to watch Ollie Talks Airsoft, God rest his soul, one of the best channels on YouTube. So let's talk about manufacturers. When it comes to AGs, I bet you've already heard about SIMA or SIMA. I'm not sure how to properly pronounce that in English. Maybe you've heard about LCT. Of course, Tokyo Marui makes AGs. You've heard about VFC, Crytek, G&G, East Crane, and different other companies. When it comes to GBB market, I would say that the demand of manufacturers is much lower. In my opinion, you should buy something from Tokyo Marui or Guns Modified. Guns Modified is famous for fixing all the problems that you have with your Tokyo Marui replicas right out of the box. And also sometimes you have a steel bolt and trigger group assembly right out of the box, which is real cool. The price isn't that high in a comparison. Sometimes it's even lower, if I'm not mistaken. Also, we have VFC, GHK. I've heard many good things about Double Eagle, especially by Jaeger Precision, and I trust his opinion. I also heard a lot of things about APFG, which is a part of VFC, if I'm not mistaken, and Salvo Precision, which is a part of Double Eagle, again, if I'm not mistaken. What would I recommend you to buy? Guns Modify or Tokyo Marui? It depends on the replica that you want and if you are ready to fix some stuff. And also VFC replicas are quite cool. The best part is, well, that according to Explosive Enterprise V3 system review, you can use lots of different real steel parts when you're playing with your VFC replica, and you can imagine how cool that is that. Well, because the real parts are made for gunpowder and we're using green gas. You can imagine how durable your gun will be when you are using different real steel parts. If you're living in the US, I might recommend you to buy a VFC replica. But again, as I mentioned earlier in my first video, the most important part is upgradability and repairability. If you can't fix your replica or upgrade it, you don't buy it. If you want to buy Tokyo Marui, I think it is necessary to talk about aftermarket parts and different manufacturers. I strongly recommend you to buy Guns Modified. Angry Gun products, I heard, have QC issues, but I have no issues with the nozzle, so I can recommend it, theoretically. And that's pretty much it. Right now, I don't know about any other manufacturers. Now, why would you buy a GBB replica rather than an AEG? The main reason is that you will have to manipulate the gun, and I hope it makes sense in English. You have to work with your gun, play with your gun in a way you would work, play, manipulate the real thing. The mag capacity is lower. You have recoil, which is the funniest part when we are talking about playing with your GBB replica. When you are reloading, you will have to use your charging handle, actually. Also, when your mag is empty, you will have to press bolt release button, which is really cool, in my opinion. And you have some other things, like with Tokimaru, you can't put it on safety if it's not cocked. That is also cool, in my opinion. And the best thing about GBB replicas, it's not efficiency, but it's the way how you play with them, the way how they feel in your hand. So, if you are like me, and you are just enjoying playing airsoft, it's not like a sport to you, and you're not trying to be as efficient as possible. Your weather is nice, well, the weather in your country is nice, and you have enough money, I don't see why should you buy an AEG. You can literally start with the GBBR replica, and you will enjoy playing with it. Because, well, you have recoil, you have to reload your mags a lot, and you have to push different control, like use different controls on your replica. Not just simply remove the old mag, then you put back a new one and you're ready to go. And then you unplug the battery and plug the battery again. So let's summarize everything I said. AEG is a classic. It's efficient, it's consistent, it's quite cheap, depends on the manufacturer and the model that you want to buy. The mags are definitely much cheaper in comparison with the GBB mags, and you don't need to think about maintenance too much. You can upgrade it once or twice, send it to a tech, they will take a look at it, clean it, relube it. Maybe you should do it once or twice a year. I would recommend you to do that at least twice a year, and that's pretty much it. You're playing airsoft, you're enjoying it, your gun is up to field limit, you don't need to think about the weather. However, you don't have the recoil, and the only thing you do is you're changing your mags. You don't have to like work with your charging handle, you don't need to push the slide release button and stuff like that. If you're trying to be as efficient as humanly possible, well, AEGs are for you. But if you're just an ordinary player who loves gear and different guns, you can theoretically buy a GBB replica, cause you will play with it the way you would play or use your real firearm. You can theoretically even train with it. I'm not saying it because, well, I don't have a real firearm, but, well, maybe I've seen a T-Rex arm old video about that, and it was proven that airsoft experience also matters. But there are some disadvantages. GBB replicas aren't that consistent, and you might struggle with the weather. The mags are expensive, and the replica itself is expensive. Also, there are sometimes issues that you have addressed right out of the box, and usually with the AEGs, you don't need to do that. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Leave a like, subscribe, and I see you in the next video. Bye-bye.